All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're talking about how an ancient Korean design philosophy, pungsu-jiri, can actually be a super practical guide for picking your next home. And don't worry, we're not talking about crystals or weird superstitions here. This is all about a simple framework for finding a place that genuinely feels good to live in.
You know, our source material for this whole thing kicks off with a really personal and kind of painful story. This isn't just some abstract idea. For the author, ignoring these principles led to very real, very expensive problems. It's a pretty powerful reminder that sometimes the vibe of a place has actual real-world consequences.
And this really gets to the core of it, right? Have you ever had a place that, on paper, was totally fine? Great location, good price, but you just never felt right there? You felt drained, and you couldn't explain why. Something was just off. That's exactly the feeling we're going to dig into today.
So let's get into the author's story, because it's a classic case of learning things the hard way. It all came down to this one apartment they called unlucky, which was right at a T-junction. And as you'll see, just 1 year was more than enough to create a whole list of never-agains.
What's so wild about this is how all these little issues just piled up. You had a main road aimed right at the building, like living at the end of a bowling alley. Headlights constantly sweeping through your windows at night. And get this, you could open the front door and see straight out the back window, a literal wind tunnel. Oh, and the cherry on top? The bathroom was plopped right in the very center of the apartment. It was just a perfect storm of bad design.
And here is the absolute kicker. This wasn't just a feeling of being on edge. When the author went to get an insurance quote, it was 8 to 10% higher than a nearly identical apartment on a quieter street. Why? The official reason was road exposure and higher accident risk. That just goes to show you how these ancient ideas can map directly onto modern financial realities.
So that whole nightmare experience led the author back to pungsu-jiri, but not as some kind of mystical belief system. Instead, they saw it as a practical sanity check, a way to really evaluate a potential home before you sign on the dotted line. It's almost like reading a building as its own little ecosystem.
So what exactly is it? Well, at its heart, pungsu-jiri is just an ecological reading of your environment. It looks at how a place fits with everything around it, the flow of wind, of water, of traffic, and it boils it all down to one simple but really profound question. Will this place support human life gracefully? The author has this brilliant analogy to explain it. A home with good geomancy, it just feels like it breathes with its surroundings. It feels calm, you know? But a home with bad geomancy, it feels like walking into a room where people just had a mild argument. Nobody's yelling, but you can feel that tension in the air.
Honestly, here's the best way to think about it in modern terms. Pungsu-jiri is basically a user experience test, a UX test for your house. It's a practical way to figure out how a space is going to affect your body and your mind day after day.
Okay, so let's get into the really useful part of all this. We're going to walk through the 7 most common layout traps that you should try to avoid. Think of this as your go-to checklist. Our source material actually points out 7 key patterns to look for. But for today, we're going to focus in on the 3 biggest and most common traps, the ones that really have the most impact on your daily life. Let's start with number 1.
The very first trap is what the author calls the wind tunnel. This is what happens when your front door is in a direct line with a back door or a really big window. I know it might look amazing and airy in the real estate photos, but it creates a ton of practical issues.
In this kind of layout, energy, and I mean that literally, like heat and air conditioning, just shoots straight through the house. That means drafts, it means temperature swings, and it can actually jack up your utility bills. It also just feels like you're living in a hallway. There's no place for energy or conversation or even your thoughts to just kind of settle. Next up, we've got the T-junction bullseye, the exact problem that started this whole mess for the author. This is any home where a road is pointed directly at it, creating this constant sense of attacking energy from the noise, the traffic, and especially the headlights at night. And trying to fix this after you've already moved in, it's not cheap. Just look at these 2025 cost estimates from Korea. A simple low wall with some shrubs can run you up to 4 million won. If you need to upgrade your windows to block out sound or reinforce a gate, you're talking about some serious money. It's a really expensive problem to solve later. The third huge trap to watch out for is what the source calls the bathroom heart. This is when a bathroom is located right in the geometric center of the home's floor plan. In pungsu-jiri, that central spot is meant to be the calm, stable heart of the house.
So, just think about that for a second. Where is the heart of your home? Is it a place for gathering, like a living room? Or is it a place for plumbing? It actually matters a lot more than you'd think. A central bathroom basically concentrates all the noise, all the moisture, and all the potential plumbing issues right where you want things to be the most stable. It's way harder to ventilate, which means a higher risk for mold, and heaven forbid you ever have a leak, it can become a total structural nightmare.
Now, beyond those big three, there are a few other subtle traps to keep an eye on. For example, be careful with kitchens, where the stove and sink, fire and water, are directly facing each other. Also, look out for super long, narrow hallways that can feel kinda unsettling. And of course, any important room that has no windows. They're all small things, but they can really add up.
So now that we know what to look out for, how do we actually put this information to use? Well, that brings us to the final and most practical part of this, your own personal checklist for making a smart choice.
This little guide here is incredibly helpful. Look, if you're only dealing with 1 or 2 minor issues and you absolutely love your neighborhood, maybe a renovation makes sense. But if your place has 3 or more of these layout traps, especially the big ones, like being on a T-junction, it might be time to seriously think about moving. Okay, let's boil this all down to something you can actually use. The next time you're looking at a new place, just run this quick 3-point check in your head. 1. Trace the sight lines from the front door. 2. Check the approach. Is a road aimed at you? And 3. Find the heart of the floor plan. It's a 1-minute check that could save you years of grief.
And really, that's what this is all about. It's not about trying to find some mystically perfect house. It's just about finding a space that supports you. Like the author says so well, you deserve a home that doesn't feel like a low-grade argument every single time you walk in.
And that leaves us with this final thought. When you're looking for your next home, try to shift your thinking away from luck and towards support. Ask yourself, is this place going to be a foundation for my well-being, or is it going to be something I have to constantly fight against? The answer to that question could change everything.